Hi, so today I'm going to be starting by explaining um, what the CPU is, the RAM, and hard drive. So the CPU is stands for Central Processing Unit. Um, it's considered the brain of the computer because it consists of, like executing instructions for programs, processing data, and performing calculations. Um, the speed of the CPU is measured in gigahertz, and it uses temporary data storage called the registers. The RAM stands for random access memory. It's um, it's basically like temporary memory. It stores data and instructions while the computer is running, but its memory is volatile, meaning when the computer is powered off, it will lose that data. So it's deleted pretty much. Non-volatile, it would store the memory, but not in the case of RAM. The more RAM a system has, the better it can handle multitasking. If you want to open multiple tabs in your browser or you want to run multiple applications or programs in your computer, it'll be better. The more you have, the better it will handle those situations. The hard drives, it could be HDD or SSD. It's permanent storage, so it's not volatile. It stores programs, files, and basically the operating system. HDD is a hard disk drive. It uses spinning magnetic disks. It's slower than SSDs. And an SSD uses flash memory, so it's much faster and more reliable. Comments in C++, um, they are used to explain code by the programmer, but they're completely ignored by the compiler. Um, so it could be a single line comment or it could be a multi-line comment, but it will be completely ignored. It's only used so the programmer can kind of understand what's being done and with each line of code, depending on how much he wants to add. Variables, um, it's a storage location in memory with a specific data type. So, for example, if I'm using an integer, I probably want a whole number. It could be 5, 10, 15, whatever number you decide. Um, a float or a double is for decimal numbers. So, 5.10, 6.25. Just using a decimal number that can basically store that value instead of a whole number. A character is, or char, how it's used in the programming in C++, it's for single characters. For example, the letter A or B or whatever it may be. Um, Bool or Boolean values, they are they're stored for true or false values. So it's either true or false, and then depends what statement you use it for. A string is just a line of text. For example, hello, goodbye, whatever it may be you're using it for. So integers versus floating point calculations. So with integers, as I said, they're for mostly whole numbers. They don't store decimal values. So you could say the variable a equals to 7 or b equals to 2, whatever it may be, but it has to be a whole number. And floating point calculations, they can store decimal values. Y equals 2.5, x equals 5.7. So yeah, they use decimals. If statements, they're basically just conditional statements. They're only executed if a certain condition is met. So it'll the compiler will keep on reading, the line of code, the if statements until one is true. Then it will execute that statement and ignore the rest. As we move over to the sample program I created, or the sample code, I used the IDE to determine the person's age. So I put it, enter your age, so the user knows what information they have to input, and then using integer because a person's age is always a whole number. It's never really a decimal. At least that's not how we use it. So that's why I put int instead of a double or a true or false, with a bool value. Um, so I put if the person is greater than or equal to 18, so they're 18 or greater than, I put you can vote. And I use the comments here in order to be able to determine, okay, what exactly are these lines of code referring to. So player determines the person's age, the output if the user is 18 or more. I put here if the person is not 18 but they are either 16 or 17, both statements has to be true here. I put you can almost vote. So instead of just saying, oh, you can't vote, or I just put you can almost vote. So they to add just more information to the code. Else, I'm using if or else if statements. The person is greater than or equal to 0, I put you are too young to vote. The reason I did this is because we don't have negative ages. We don't really say someone is negative 10 years old or whatever. So I put, if the number is less than 0, or they don't meet any of these values, then I put error, the age cannot be negative. And then I put a comment here, the output of the user age is a negative number. And so if we run this code, it'll say enter your age, which is the output that I put here, so the user knows what they're typing. So let's say let's start with a negative number. Let's say if I put negative 200, whatever, it'll say error, age cannot be negative. Now we run the code again, and we put let's say 12. You are too young to vote. So you can see it didn't meet any of these first two values, but it did meet this third value. And then if we put 16 or 17 in this case, I put you can almost vote. And for the last one, if we put that we are, let's say 25, it says you can vote. And so what I used here was if else or else if statements in order to calculate the person's age, whatever they put in, and then take that value, and the program is able to determine if the person can vote or not. And it comes up with an error statement if the value is negative. And so that's basically the program that I used for the sample code.